News Nation contributor, host of Kurt's Country, Kurt Bardella, and Mark Lauder, who was a special assistant to former President Donald Trump. Good morning to both of you. Mark, Kamala Harris holding true to her word. She said she was going to do a sit-down interview by the end of August, but she's not doing this one alone. She's going to have, again, her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, by her side. Some Republican pundits are already criticizing that move to do a joint interview.
Well, it's not unusual for the candidates to do a joint interview, but usually you do it right after you nominate or pick your running mate, not 2-3 weeks later. And she should be able to stand on her own and do her own interview. We'll see how it goes. My bigger concern is she actually going to say anything about what she wants to do to bring down prices, secure the border, and why she hasn't done it over the last 3.5 years when she's been in the White House.
Kurt, what do you make of the joint interview? Is it going to help her or hurt her here?
I think it'll help. I mean, what we have seen so far is that pretty much any appearance by Kamala Harris and Tim Walz together has helped their approval ratings, has helped the way that the country feels about them. There's a reason why we've seen such an upshot for this ticket since it came on the scene a little more than a month ago. And, again, as Mark said, this is a pretty normal thing that we see, of all parties, all nominees, they do that joint sit-down interview. We're obviously going to have the debate on September 10th, where she will most likely be asked very specific and pointed questions. And those will be kind of the litmus test that the American people use to try to see if they're comfortable with the idea of Kamala Harris being president of the United States. That's what really these interviews and these benchmarks are about. It's convincing the American people that they could visualize seeing you in the most powerful position in the world.
Kurt, I guess I'm also curious your take on, how she should approach this interview. Sort of to Mark's point there, she's probably going to get some pushback about her policies. There have been a lot of Republican criticism about, her website not really having policies listed or her changing her stance on some things. How should she approach those tough questions in this interview?
She should approach them honestly. I mean, I always say for whatever party you're on, whatever side you're on, and I've worked on both sides for both parties at this point, the best thing to do when talking to the media and via them, the American people, is try to be your most authentic, sincere self. I think one of the reasons why Donald Trump has been so successful as a politician is that the audience believes that what they say on TV is exactly the same guy that he is when you turn the TV camera off. That
like it or not,
shines through. Yeah, and again, I'm not the biggest Trump supporter in the world, obviously, but I recognize that skill, that attribute that he has that shines through why people connect with them. I think Harris needs to show that she can do the same thing.
I also want to talk about the debate. I know you guys sort of touched on this a bit, but there's a lot of back and forth happening over the last couple of days about this first debate between Trump and Harris. The former president confirming yesterday that the September 10th debate with ABC is still on. He says that the rules are going to be the same, including with the muted microphones. Harris' campaign, though, says it's still being talked about. Mark, what's going on here? I mean, this debate about the debates.
That's the stupidest debate in politics. I really hate it. But look, Kamala Harris first, she was challenging Trump to debate. Then they pulled back. Then Trump was questioning it and whether they should do other networks. And now they're arguing over various aspects. Look, both sides are trying to put themselves into the best position. And I think obviously, Trump, Biden, they agreed to these rules. Those rules worked the first time. I think they should work the second time and let both of them out there. Let them talk about their plans to fix the future and why Kamala Harris hasn't done it already. And let's see how it plays out.
Kurt, go ahead, jump in here. What do you think's going on here?
All right, audience, we're gonna tell you a little secret. No political operative, spokesperson, consultant on either side of the aisle doesn't think that this debate's not going to end up happening. The rules are going to be whatever they are. They'll probably be what the rules have been for almost every debate that we've ever seen. And at the end of the day, the debate about debates, like Mark said, is really such inside baseball maneuvering. It's trying to set expectations and manage them through the media. And it's all posturing that ultimately won't really matter once we get to debate day.
Fair enough. All right. Both campaigns, they've also picked up their ground game this week. They've got stops in several battleground states. Harris, we talked about, she's going to be in Georgia, the former president in Michigan. But there's also a lot of money being injected into ad buys. The most run ads by the Harris campaign have all been about trying to define who she is. Democrats have really been putting forward a lot more ads about her biography. Trump, on the flip side, though, he's used his ads really to target Harris, really kind of looking to lock in the perceptions about her. Mark, your perspective on all of this, who do you think's coming out on top?
Well, right now, obviously, the American people do not like the situation that we're in, whether it's the economy and inflation, whether it's the wide open border. All of that fell on Kamala Harris's watch and because of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's failed policies. It's funny that Kamala Harris is actually now running ads with Donald Trump's wall in it. So it proves she will say or do anything to get power. And I think they're doing a very good job defining her and tying her to the problems that are being faced by Americans all across this country.
Kurt, I'll quickly give you the last word here.
Well, I think the American people already view Donald Trump as someone who will say or do anything for power. This is a guy who once actually supported Kamala Harris, kept checked to her campaign, a guy who held up a free and fair election to try to hold on to power. So I think that perception is already baked in for Trump, and that won't really land as much for Kamala Harris. And the resources that she has, which are astronomical and raised at a historic pace, are going to go a long way in her defining her own narrative.
Kurt Bardella, Mark Lauder, thanks for the conversation on this Wednesday.